Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Commander's Forge. I'm in pain. But that said, my name is Andy Bentley, and the Commander's Forge is an area for me to talk about Magic, Commander, and anything else while I try and wrangle this whole mental health into a place where it's supposed to be and not in the garbage where mine is. Now, this week I am in a lot of pain. Mostly because getting old sucks. Don't do it. I don't recommend. Last weekend, I helped my cousin and his roommate move. And this weekend, we helped his girlfriend and her sister move. And I'm feeling the consequences of my own actions. That said, I wanted to touch quickly on the Doctor Who Commander decks that came out. Mostly just to say that I got them all, and I'm probably just going to kind of keep them together, sleeved up in like a little box of their own, so whenever I'm hanging out with people, I can just be like, hey, do you just want to jam these decks together? You see, I was never the biggest Doctor Who fan. I was really only familiar with, like, I believe it was the 8th, the 10th, and the 11th Doctor back when I was growing up. And I never really got into it more than, like, just passing knowledge of the show and stuff that happened in it. And I don't really have any plans to purchase much more of, like, the single products, like the collector decks. But each of the decks does come with, like, that sample pack that gives you, like, 2 cards from the set that are from the collector boosters. And I ended up pulling a borderless, the War Doctor, which is 2 a red and a white. It's a 3/5 for a Time Lord Doctor. And it says, whenever one or more other permanents phase out, and whenever one or more other cards are put into exile from anywhere, put a time counter on the War Doctor, and whenever the War Doctor attacks, it deals damage equal to the number of time counters on it to any target. If a creature is dealt damage this way, would die, exile it instead. And I also pulled a borderless Adric Mathematical Genius, which is 1 and a blue for a 1/1 Human Artificer. It has for 2 and a blue and tap, copy target activated or triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy, and it has Ultimate Sacrifice, which is 1 and a blue to sacrifice him to counter target activated or triggered ability. And then it has the Doctor's Companion ability, which allows you to partner it with a doctor. So I had this idea for like a Jeskai phasing deck, where the goal is gonna kind of be to, like, phase out opponents' creatures so that I have clear attacks. But then I was looking through some of the stuff that I just had on hand, and I was like, you know, we can just throw things like Aqueous Form in there and make them unblockable, or Aether Tunnel. And then we could start doing stuff that, like, exiles our own stuff, like Slip on the Ring. We have stuff like Light Up the Stage, that's like card draw exile. We have Stone of Irreach, which is an artifact that says if a creature and opponent dies, you exile it instead. And this is finally a place where I can put the Virtue of Courage that I pulled. That's the 3 red enchantment that says whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, you may exile that many cards from the top of your library. You may play those cards this turn. And then it has Embereth Blaze as an adventure for 1 and a red. It deals 2 damage to any target. So the way I envision the deck working would be like a mid-rangey remove creatures temporarily to get extra damage in with your commander, and then you can either start propagating the counters on him with Adric, or you can just nuke somebody with Adric, because, I mean, both of his abilities are triggered abilities, so when he attacks, you can tap Adric to double the amount of damage he does. So, I mean, you get 4 counters on him, you attack with the War Doctor, he domes your opponent for 4, but then you just double that to 8. Now, it's not considered combat damage, so you can't, like, commander damage them out this way, but slinging around extra random damage in a Jeskai deck, I mean, I think it'll work. Alright, so today we are not going to do like a full deck tech in the second half because we're going to talk about some of the Ixalan cards that I've seen that I am so far excited for. So I'll be right back to talk about those. Hey, I just want to take a minute to tell you about my Patreon. I know times are hard for everybody, and I know it isn't easy to shuffle around bills and stuff, believe me, I know that. But if you would like to help support the podcast and me, you can find the links to my Patreon in my link tree, which is always put into the description of either the video or the audio, wherever you're listening to it. It would really mean the world to me. Honestly, I'm just struggling to make ends meet most weeks. But that's it. That's all. If you want to help, the links will be where you can find them. And we're back. Now, the way I do any kind of set review is that I do not do a full set review. If you want that, there are plenty of other places that do that. I'm just going to cherry pick maybe 1 to 2 cards from each color that I want to talk about, and then kind of break it down a little bit. And I'm sorry if I butcher any of these names. I will try my best. The first one I want to talk about is Ogier Tak, the Deepest Foundation. 4 white for a 6/6 god with vigilance. It has if 1 or more creature tokens would be created under your control, 3 times that many tokens are created instead. And instantly I know this is going to be a $50 card. But when it dies, return it to the battlefield tapped and transformed under its owner's control. It becomes the Temple of Civilization. It is a land. It taps for a white. And you can pay 2 and a white and tap to transform the Temple of Civilization. Activate only if you attacked with 3 or more creatures this turn and only as a sorcery. I feel like this card's going to be a problem. The one upside is that it's 6 mana. So maybe that helps keep the price down a little bit. Now, I also want to touch on the fact that Resplendent Angel is getting a reprint in this set. That's 1 white for a 3/3 angel with flying at the beginning of each end step. If you gain 5 or more life this turn, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance, and you can pay 3 white. Until end of turn, Resplendent Angel gets +2/+2 and lifelink. Now, going into blue, the first one I do want to talk about is the Ogier Pakpatik, Deepest Epoch, which is 2 blue for a 4/3 god. It has flying, and whenever you cast an instant spell from your hand, it gains rebound. When it dies, return to the battlefield tapped and transformed with 3 time counters on it. It becomes the Temple of Cyclical Time. It's a land. Taps for blue and remove a time counter from the temple. For 2 and a blue and tap, transform the temple. Activate only if it has no time counters on it and only as a sorcery. Now, the other one I did want to touch on here is, in blue, the Enigma Jewel. It's a single blue mana, it's a legendary artifact, enters the battlefield tapped, and you can tap it and add 2 colorless mana, spend this mana only to activate abilities. But then it has an ability that says craft with 4 or more non-lands with activated abilities for 8 and a blue. So, what the reminder text says is pay 8 and a blue, exile this artifact, exile the 4 or more from among permanents you control and or cards in your graveyard, and then return this card transformed under its owner's control and craft only as a sorcery. And it turns into the Locus of Enlightenment. It's a legendary artifact. Locus of Enlightenment has each activated ability of the exiled cards used to craft it. You may activate each of those abilities only once each turn. Whenever you activate an ability that isn't a mana ability, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. I can already see a few decks where this would just kind of pop off. And I think it's gonna be good times. Now moving into black, we're gonna start with the Elkalot's Deepest Betrayal, which is 3 black for a 4/4 Bat God. It has flying and lifelink, and whenever it attacks, each opponent discards a card. For each opponent that can't, you draw a card. So that's going to be fun. Whenever an opponent discards a land card, you create a 1/1 Bat creature token with flying, and then when it dies, you again transform it. Comes back as Temple of the Dead. It taps for a black, and for 2 and a black, you can transform Temple of the Dead. Activate only if a player has 1 or fewer cards in their hand, and only as a sorcery. Interesting. It doesn't matter that it's you or an opponent, so you could just keep yourself at 1 card in hand to flip. Okay, interesting. Now, the other black card I kind of want to touch on is Tarian's Journal. It's 1 and a black for a legendary artifact. You can tap it and sacrifice another artifact or creature to draw a card, activate only as a sorcery. But you can pay 2, tap it, and discard your hand to transform the journal. It becomes a legendary land with the type Cave. It taps for a black, and it taps, and you may cast a creature spell from your graveyard this turn. If you do, it enters the battlefield with a finality counter on it, and is a vampire in addition to its other types. Then it says if a creature with a finality counter on it would die, exile it instead. So, yeah. Alrighty, moving into red, we have Ogier Ixalan, Deepest Might, which is 2 red for a 4/4 god. It has trample. If a red source you control would deal an amount of non-combat damage less than his power to an opponent, that source deals damage equal to his power instead. Huh. And then when it dies, you can return it transformed, and it becomes the Temple of Power. Taps for a red, and again, has an activated ability for 2 and its color, so 2 in red. Tap, transform Temple of Power, activate only if red sources you control dealt 4 or more non-combat damage this turn, and only as a sorcery. Huh. That might be going into that deck I was talking about building in the first part of this. Now, the other Riyadh card I wanted to touch on is Breaches is coming back. Breaches, Eager Pillager, 2 in red, legendary goblin pirate. He's a 3/3 with first strike, and whenever a pirate you control attacks, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Create a treasure token. Target creature can't block this turn. Exile top card of the library. You may play this card. Is this card going to be amazing? No. But I hope we get enough critical mass of pirates in this to actually build more pirate decks. Honestly, I'm hoping for a black-red legendary pirate that just cares about pirates attacking, you know what I mean? But moving into green, there's actually a few things I want to touch on here. First off, the reprint of Growing Rights of Itlamok. Secondly, the green god has not been previewed yet. But instead we have Huatli, Poet of Unity. 2 and a green for a 2/3 human warrior bard. When she enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. Why would you need to get basics with the deck you run with her? Well, she has an ability that costs 3 and then 2 hybrid Boros. To exile Huatli, then return her to the battlefield transformed under her owner's control, activate only as a sorcery, and her backside is Roar of the Fifth People. It's a saga. On step 1, you create 2 3/3 green dinosaur creature tokens. On 2, Roar of the Fifth People gains creatures you control have tap. Add Naya colors. On the 3rd step, search your library for a dinosaur card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. And then on the 4th step, dinosaurs you control gain double strike and trample until end of turn. And this does not have a return afterwards. So after you get to the end, it's gone. That, maybe I need to catch up with this story, because if Saheeli loses her girlfriend, a lot of people are going to be mad. Now there is one green one I have to touch on. It's Earthshaker Dreadmaw. It's 4 green for a 6/6 dinosaur at common with trample. So that's just the Dreadmaw from like the original Ixalan series. But this one says, when it enters the battlefield, draw a card for each other dinosaur you control. So it's a strict upgrade to the original common green Dreadmaw. Yeah, good times. Now, looking at the multicolored stuff, I don't want to get into too many of them, just because there is, well, a lot. But I do want to talk about Saheeli, the Sun's Brilliance. It is a blue and a red for a 2/2 human artificer, and for blue and a red and tap, create a token that's a copy of another target creature or artifact you control, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. It gains haste, sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step. So, yeah. Saheeli and her girlfriend are both here. Do you want to touch in on the fact that Quintorius Cand, the elephant from Strixhaven, is getting his first Planeswalker card here? I don't really want to get into it. We have a new Gishath. Except it's not a new Gishath, it's actually just a reprint of Gishath, but with new art. We also have Kellen here, the Planeswalker from the last set, whose name escapes me. And then there's a Captain Storm, Cosmium Raider. Is this Lannery Storm? I don't know. More will have to be inquired. And all the new vampires and stuff. I'm not really looking to get into it. There's a mana rock called Sunbird Standard. It's 3 mana, taps for any color. But it has craft with 1 or more for 5. And it flips into Sunbird Effigy. It's a bird construct. It's a star with flying, vigilance, and haste. Its power and toughness are each equal to the number of colors among the exiled cards used to craft it. And then you can tap for each color among the exiled cards used to craft it, and add 1 mana of that color. Huh. That's interesting. Okay, and I just want to round this out with talking about some lands. First off, Caverns of Souls is getting a reprint. But we have a new cycle of lands called Caves. There's one for each color. They all start with Hidden, and then, Cataract, Courtyard, Necropolis, Nursery, and Volcano. They tap for blue, white, black, green, and red, respectively. And then they each have an ability for 4, and then the color that they tap for, to sacrifice it and discover 4. And activate only as a sorcery. And apparently discovering 4 is you exile a card from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card with mana value 4 or less. You can cast it without paying its mana cost, or put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order. That's cool. And then there's also a set of manlands here. The Restless lands. So we've got Restless Anchorage. Enters battlefield taps for white or blue, and for 1 white and a blue, it becomes a 2/3 white-blue bird creature with flying. And whenever it attacks, you create a map token. We have Restless Prairie, which is, again, enters taps for green-white. For 2 green and white, it becomes a 3/3 green and white llama creature until end of turn. It's still a land. Whenever it attacks, other creatures get +1/+1 till end of turn. We have the Restless Ridgeline. Enters taps for red-green. For 2 red and a green, it becomes a 3/4 red-green dinosaur. Whenever it attacks, another target attacking creature gets +2/+0 till end of turn. Untap that creature. Restless Vents is taps for black-red. And for 1 a black and a red till end of turn, it becomes a 2/3 black and red insect creature with menace. And whenever it attacks, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Huh. Interesting. Well, I really don't want to spend too much more time talking about this, but as I'm looking through at the foil-only booster cards, so far, there's 6 Caverns of Souls there, and they all have like a different color scheme. There's one that's like green, red, and yellow. Then there's one that's like completely yellow, completely blue, completely purple, completely red, and completely green. Those look kinda sick. So when it says that they're foil-only booster cards, that means they're probably only in the collector boosters. Huh. Alright, well, before I get too far into the weeds here, I think we're going to wrap this one up. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. All of my links can be found in my link tree in the description below. I would like to thank Ian Foss and Cody Mulpey of the band The Crypt for allowing me to use music for my opening and ending, along with Nate and Erica Jacobs for making my original logo. And I would also like to thank Christina McNichol for creating my new logo. And I'll see you next time.